Good evening and welcome to Localvision. I'm your host, Tonya Giddens, and I'm so glad to be here with you all this lovely day. This will be a show that will be inspiring, it'll be entertaining, and it will be informative. There'll be many different guests coming on and joining me and talking about various subjects. For instance, my first guest today is an author, a realtor, a philanthropist, a blogger. How many other jobs do you have, girl?
That's pretty much it. And a friend.
And friend, and fellow alum.
Exactly.
So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Miss Monica Michelle. Monica, thank you for being my first guest on Local
Thank you
Vision.
for having me. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for you, for your show. This is going to be a fun time for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about, before we get started on you and your 27 jobs,
Right.
let's talk about current events.
Okay.
Okay, for those who have been living under a rock, this week, Caitlyn Jenner hit the cover of Vanity Fair magazine. For those who don't know Caitlyn Jenner was formerly Olympian Bruce Jenner. At the age of 64, he has now decided to become a woman, or a more technical term, transgender. He made the cover of Vanity Fair magazine, dressed in a corset, full makeup, full hair, the whole nine. And I must admit, he looks fabulous. I'm sorry, she looks fabulous, because from now on moving forward, she will be known as Caitlyn.
Correct.
So did you see the cover?
I did see the cover. I'm not really anyone who knows me knows I'm not really a television person, so I don't really watch television, but I did see the cover. I mean, I actually didn't even put it together when I saw Caitlyn Jenner. I just thought maybe it was his sister or something originally.
Wow.
But, then of course the Facebook world kind of lit up, and a couple of girlfriends of mine and I had a little dialogue on it, and I have no issues with it. I don't really understand the sensationalism of it. There's so many other things going on in the world that I'm thinking, like, who cares? I know one or two, well, I don't personally know them, but I know people who know cross-dressing men. I don't necessarily know that he's transgender, though, because I think he's just cross-dressing.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, he purchased his breasts. I'm sorry, I keep saying
Purchased
he,
her breasts.
force of habit, so I apologize to my transgender people, because I love you all.
Me too.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting the way it kind of spiraled into this whole media frenzy.
Yeah, I think it's par for the course for the current more popular media. I think it's just it's a diversionary tactic. I just think there's other pressing things that we can talk about. I'm not really concerned about Caitlyn Jenner and her issues. I think her family has to deal with them, and having to really, really maneuver around his new life, or her new life, and her new lifestyle. So, I mean, she's saying that she's,
It's hard. It's very hard to hear,
right,
to switch from he to she, especially when a person has lived their life so long as a man.
And a coveted man. I mean, a sex symbol, a man who
he was cute when he was young.
He was
very
a handsome man. He was a handsome man. So I think that's what the shock factor is for everyone. Not really me, but I think those people who were really fans of his, and fans of his fame and his his sexiness. I think it's really kind of a shock. I don't know who in our age if they decided to become we'd probably be shocked. I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to offend anyone, but if anyone who we coveted as one of the sexiest men alive decided to, do this transformation, I think we'd all be pretty confused and just shocked. But I don't necessarily think it's national newsworthy.
I would have to agree with you. When you put it into a certain perspective, that's definitely, I can agree with you more.
Yeah, I could have done without it. And the cover, and ever seeing him in a wig, I just don't really,
You're right.
Well, all due respect to him. I mean, I think he's lived his life, and this is what he wants to do, so live it and enjoy it.
Yeah, now she's living her truth, and kudos to Caitlyn. I mean, that's really all we can say.
Right.
Okay. The next topic that I found interesting was Avante's Law. Last year, a 14-year-old autistic boy, Avante Corindo, please forgive me if I mispronounced it, left his school. He walked out of the school doors and disappeared. And there was a media frenzy trying to locate, where he went because he was a special needs teenager. He was found about maybe 2 or 3 months later, and unfortunately, it wasn't for the best. But now a group of New York City assemblymen and legislators came up with Avante's Law, which, from that law, will enable 1,200 schools in the New York City area to put locks on their doors. So that way, that will never happen again to a student, And once the door is opened, the alarm will sound. I think that in theory, it's a good idea. But, there's always a but. I think to a certain extent, it may not work as well as people hope it will.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be a parent. There's always going to be someone who'll be against it because I think it seems very restrictive. I think it's almost like, just locking kids into school. I think that situation was not really a one-off, but kind of a one-off. It was an unfortunate and tragic situation.
Yes.
And while I think some type of law needed to be implemented, I guess we all will see in the future how successful this is because, there are students, what if something happens and the students can't get out? I mean, are these locks just one way? Are they,
Right.
You know what I mean? So if there's some type of fire or some type of issue, are these locks going to unlock automatically? Right. What are the actual, how are these locks installed? Things like that. I don't really know completely. I haven't completely read the story, but it makes people feel warm and fuzzy because of the tragedy of the situation. But I think if something else happens as a result of these locks, it'll be a double-edged sword, if you will.
That's true. You're absolutely right. It almost reminds me of Lean on Me, the movie.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's what it reminds me of when Joe Clark wanted to lock the doors and, the faculty and the parents were saying, no, don't lock the doors. You never know what might happen.
Right.
And, it's interesting. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see.
Right. That's why I was kind of saying like that in that situation, in the Joe Clark situation, obviously the lock was absolute. It was just a lock. You couldn't get in or you couldn't get out. Right. Are there things in place for these locks that are just one way? If that alarm sounds, how quickly can a staff member get there to see what happened? How quickly and, reactive will a staff member be to find out what happened and why that door is locked? How many children, just, bratty, pranky kind of children will push these and push the alarms just for the sake of doing it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I agree. And I think as time moves on, the press will definitely be following the story. Pass or fail, if you will.
Sure.
Oh, well, let's talk about you.
Well,
where do I begin? Let's talk about, first of all, your writing. What made you want to write?
So I write. I've been writing for pretty much all my life. Had I ever written a book, I probably unsuccessfully had tried a couple of times to write a couple. But I think my formula this time was a little bit different in how I went about writing it. So I've always written. I've always been a fiction writer. I've always been a poetry writer. So that's nothing new for me and probably my inner circle. So that's really it. I mean, I've always written. How I came to write Lucky,
which we're going to get to.
Yeah, it's just
we're going to get to Lucky number 5 in just a couple of minutes because I'm waiting to talk about
get into that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So how I came to write that was just more of time and opportunity in my life. I'm also a realtor, which you might get into, but. At the time, real estate was a little bit down, really kind of had a little bit more time on my hands. And I really just had this concept for this book that I just followed through on. And I did the research and I did the legwork prior to actually sitting down and writing it a little bit more thoroughly than I had done any other book. So I think that was the difference in actually getting it from concept to page 362.
Right. And I'm always curious to find out from writers and musicians, anyone in the arts, what is your writing process?
So in the past, as I said, I've kind of been unsuccessful in completing. I'll get not even a quarter of the way through or half of the way through, and I won't finish. But this time, my process was a little bit more meticulous. I did a little bit more character development, a little bit more research first. I kind of designed an outline. The book is set present, past, present, so I had to be very, very meticulous with the timeline. So it was almost kind of very studious to do the initial process for this book. And I think that really held me to task. It really kept me on target with the writing process.
Okay. In writing, lucky number 5. This is it. Lucky number 5.
That is it.
By Monica Michelle. Were you inspired by other authors?
In terms of my style of writing, or
Yes.
Well, I'm always inspired by other writers. I mean, sometimes I pick up books and I'm just amazed at how people just intertwine words and use words and throw them on top of each other or on the side of each other. It's very interesting.
Right.
So I really, really like plays on words and good word usage. So I'm always inspired by other writers. To write Lucky, I guess I just was inspired by this concept more so than anything.
I find it interesting when I'm speaking with writers, authors, novelists. I don't know what you prefer to be called.
A novelista.
A novelista. See, you heard it here. And we're going to talk about novelista publishing as well. I think one of the writers that really spoke to me was Richard Wright. In all of his books, from Native Son, and his writing was so descriptive, but you felt like you were there.
Right.
And that's what I like to. That's what I like to read. I want to be able to be involved
in the story.
All the way, because there are some authors out here, and I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to offend, that I read their books and I'm just, where's the payoff?
Right.
You're double writing, if you will. People double talk. These writers double write, and after a while, I just say, huh? How do you avoid that?
Double writing or picking up those books?
Both.
It's interesting that you say that because when I did the cover and the back for Lucky, that's the thing that catches people is the back cover or the front flap, whichever you have, if you have hardcover. And so I think, there's no way to avoid knowing if a book is bad, right? You start reading it and you're kind of like, this took a left turn. I'm not really into it. But I'm pretty loyal to the writers that I like.
Yeah, me too.
Chimamanda, I love Daniel Black, I love, her name is Dolan Perkins. I'm as much as I write contemporary fiction and love, I like historical fiction.
Gotcha.
And historical fiction that can be focused on love is just like a win-win for me. I absolutely love it. So those are the writers that I really, really enjoy. So that's the kind of work. So I kind of know what I'm going to like to avoid. I know they're great writers. I know I'm going to get a great story. So I pretty much stay true to that, to picking up their books.
Oh, okay. Now, Lucky was the first book from your publishing company, which is Novelista. Did I get it right?
Novelista.
Novelista, okay. Now, what made you decide to create Novelista Publishing?
So originally I was, when I finished Lucky, I thought, okay, I can take the amount of time even years it takes to shop this to major publishing houses, or I can just do some research and see what the other options are and avenues are. So I did that, and I saw that there was this huge surge in self-publishing. And there are a lot of artists now who are doing hybrid publishing. Even artists who are published through one of the major publishing houses are self-publishing other works or pieces that are not in the genre that they are used to publishing with their major house.
Right.
So for me, it was more of a really, really not wanting to wait around to hear a bunch of, oh, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, when I felt like I can just take control of my own destiny. And I'm also kind of an entrepreneur at heart, being a realtor and being an independent contractor. So it's kind of, I had another business as well prior to that, that I dissolved. So yeah, I think when you have that entrepreneur spirit, it's just a no-brainer. It would cost me more money up front, but the reward on the back end is so much better. And to be able to say that I have a publishing company and I actually started it. So that's kind of how I came to starting Novelista Publishing. It was really a no-brainer. I'm going to control everything about my book.
Right. And I think in this day and age that is very important, because with the way the economy is, you have to be able to support yourself, regardless of whether or not you're working for someone else or you're doing freelancing. And it's very important for people to find something that they can do and do well, and be able to support themselves in doing it.
Right.
And I actually commend you for that.
Thank you.
I really do. Let's talk about the main character. I'm going to read a brief synopsis of Lucky, or Lucky number 5. Dr. Blaze Melise Morgan, a striking 39-year-old dermatologist living in New York City, sits on the bridge of loneliness drenched in humiliation after finding herself in her third, oh yeah, you might have been writing this about me, meaningless relationship with a man she is certain she wouldn't be with. Yeah, you must have written this about me. These sinful relationships force her to look in the mirror at a life that without true love suddenly appears insubstantial. Blaze makes a risky decision that whisks her away on 5 entrancing tropical vacations, where she finds herself confronted with the unresolved feelings of what once was. She revisits past loves, faces present opportunities, and imagines future possibilities.
There it is.
Are you Blaze?
I am not Blaze. That is a very common question that I get as a result of writing Lucky number 5. But Blaze is actually who I would love to be when I grow up, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I'm not Blaze. I actually, I'm not confronted with any kind of, crossroads in my life. And I certainly wouldn't launch into some decision to revisit past loves.
I know I would.
Because I certainly don't do that. I never revisit past loves.
Exactly.
So she's a little different than me. But Blaze is that character, that strong, independent woman who really, really was focused on career. And I think the concept of Blaze came from there's so many men out here. At the time, I think in 2010, when I wrote the book, there were so many men out that were getting a bad rap for being, bad guys. And I thought, there are some women that are absolute about their careers and non-committal, and I wanted to write one. And there are times when I get, some of my female readers who are like, I don't like Blaze. For the most part, everybody loves Blaze. You can't not love Blaze.
Okay.
But there are some people who, don't like her because she is so final in her relationships. Right. And if you can even say that, because she's final at the time, but then she obviously goes back and revisits them. So I think she's just very driven, which a lot of women are, and determined.
Absolutely. As a woman of a certain age, and...
Who? You? Oh.
Well, we're not going to discuss that part. But like I said, as a woman of a certain age, it is a little bit more tricky for us, and I will put myself in that category, for us to find relationships that actually can work, because you know, we are in our careers, we are set in our ways, and there are and sometimes we just have a lot of baggage, you know. What would you tell Blaze if you were talking to her? What would you tell her moving forward? What would be the best advice?
You know, it's interesting because I would probably liken myself to, there are two auxiliary characters in the book, her two best friends, Fallon and Brielle. And the two subsequent books to Lucky Number 5 will be based on those two women.
Oh, good.
But I would liken myself in terms of my thought processes and advice to Fallon. She's more of a, you know, just forge ahead, just, you know, do what makes you happy, enjoy life, you only live once kind of a woman. Don't accept any crap and keep it moving.
That's right.
And that's what I would tell her. And this is everybody, anyone who knows me knows that I'm pretty much like, you live your life, you have a good time, as long as you're not hurting anyone.
Right.
Enjoy it, do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I would tell her. Enjoy your life, enjoy your businesses. If you want to take 10 men away on 10 vacations over 10 months,
all right,
do it. Just be careful and go prepared.
There you go. There you go. And I think that's a stigma because a lot of people, the double standard, it has been, you know, going on since the beginning of time. So with that being said, is it even more so at our age? And I'm gonna include you in our age range with the double standard. You know, we're not supposed to do certain things the way that men do. Is it a little bit more difficult for us, particularly being women of color?
Right. I mean, I think, you know, I think we get a bad rap. I think, you know, women of color get a bad rap. I think women who are aggressive. I often get, you know, Monica, you can be intimidating. Monica.
Oh, you get that too?
Right.
Oh,
exactly.
good. I don't feel so bad now.
Yeah. So, and it's not, you know, I don't know. I feel like if men just take a moment to get to know us, you know, oftentimes I'll get, oh, well, once I got to know you, I didn't realize you were kind of as soft as you are, and you're not quite as stern as you seem to come across. And I said, I'm not at all. I mean, when it's about business, it's about business, but I'm actually very jokey and fun and silly. So I definitely think that, you know, we kind of get a bad rap. I do think we get a bad rap. And I have talked to plenty of African-American men who feel like, you know, so many of us are mouthy and so many of us are boisterous and so many of us are, and not my friends and not my network, which is what I always say.
Right.
So I don't know. How do we get around it? Shows like yours, books like Lucky.
Absolutely.
You know, you just keep going and you keep, you know, defending yourself and saying, listen, we're great. I mean, I don't really think we have to defend ourselves that much. I think there are a chosen few who are kind of archaic in their thought process.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. And I think that that's the way that they were raised, you know, and once you're raised a certain way, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to change the way of thinking unless, you know, you go out and you broaden your scope.
Right.
You know?
And I think that's kind of why I wrote Blaze the way she was, because she had some great men in her life. And she was the one who was the, you know, the decision maker to end the relationships and to move on. And which is kind of why I think those few women who are kind of like, I don't relate to her.
Right.
But stronger women, I'm not going to say stronger women, but different minded women can relate to her.
Right.
Because she is really kind of what we are now.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. Well, we're running short on time, but I do want to touch on two things.
Okay.
The Brown-Eyed novel, The Brown-Eyed Beauties.
Yes.
And Sticks and Stilettos.
Yes. So very quickly.
So give us a little bit. Give us the Reader's Digest version because we're running short.
Okay. So Brown-Eyed Beauties is a brunch organization. It started as a brunch organization, but it is now morphed into this beautiful butterfly of a nonprofit organization. We are a progressive group of professional women who brunch regularly, but we also do a lot of charitable events, volunteering, and philanthropic events around the community. We do ongoing charitable events and collections for different kinds of charities and partnerships with, like now we are partnering with a mission in New York to do personal care kits for homeless women. Nice. We did the AIDS walk. We are going to do a cocktail benefit fundraiser in Harlem in November for battered women.
Okay.
And so that's what we do ongoing. And we brunch regularly. We brunch 6 times a year. It's a membership-based organization.
Oh, I want to join.
Yeah,
I like a good brunch.
Yeah, it's a membership-based civic group, so it's a lot of fun. So we are on the web. We're at www.browneyedbeauties.com. Okay. So you can find all of our information for that. And Sticks and Stilettos is actually, I'm a cigar enthusiast. So
I'm learning the art of cigars.
You
but see,
should.
I like the sweet ones.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a huge cigar enthusiast, so a lot of people know that I am. So I partnered with a good friend of mine, Vanessa Olivier, who is an attorney in the city. And she also is a cigar enthusiast or aficionado. And we decided to start Curls and Culture, which is the parent company of it's an event management company, and we plan and do Sticks and Stilettos, which is an ongoing quarterly Lady of the Leaf event. So our last event was at Merchants in April, and it was wildly successful. Very, very upscale, polished networking event.
Nice.
And our next event we actually just secured is going to be on 5th Avenue. It's going to be a loft and a rooftop on July 23rd. And it is Sticks and Stilettos 2, Paris on 5th. So it'll be a Parisian-themed
can I wear a beret?
You can wear whatever
I'll wear a beret
like.
and one of those striped boat neck tops and some cigarette pants and some ballerina flats.
Absolutely. It's a fun event. It'll be a fun event. We're looking forward to it. So we're in the throes of planning that right now.
Okay, is there an admission
There is
cover?
an admission. So we haven't determined, but it's typically $50. That gets you 2 cigars.
Okay.
So we're partnering with some great cigar vendors. We had some great cigar vendors for our last one. Nice. And we had 2 really great wines. We did a wine tasting. We typically do raffles of gift baskets or cigars. And you just have a good time. This time we're doing an amazing pairing with a French cognac company called Maison Prunier. Nice. And they are going to do a 5 vintage cognac pairing. We're probably going to have a crepe company, French crepes, and it'll be really nice. We'll have jazz up on the terrace and a DJ in the loft. And so you get the cigars, you get the pairing, and you get a little food, and it's $50 to get in, and you get a great atmosphere. The women particularly had a good time the last time because the men come as debonair as they can, so it was a very nice event. Be interesting. Yeah, where there are women, there will be men, especially female cigar smokers. Men who like cigars enjoy a good, attractive woman who enjoys them as well. So it'll be fun. So you have to come.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm so looking forward to it.
We're under Curls and Culture on Facebook.
Curls and Culture on Facebook. Yeah. Well, that about wraps up our time. Monica, Michelle, thank you so much. Brown Eyed Beauties, Novelista, Publishing. What's your real estate company?
I am with Better Homes and Gardens Rand, but everybody knows me as the Home Diva.
The Home Diva, there you have it.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us today. It has been my pleasure. We look forward to coming back next week. And always remember, in order to be irreplaceable, one must be different. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.